Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh of Severe Weather. Welcome to my channel. I'm a meteorologist out of the Raleigh area, and I'm going to focus my video today mostly on California and what is looking like a catastrophic storm as far as significant flooding. Some places here in California are going to get more than a year's annual rainfall in 12 hours, and that is going to cause catastrophic flooding, mudslides, strong winds, maybe some severe weather as well. Just a very volatile situation as Hurricane Hilary continues to move up the Baja of California and weakens, but the moisture is still there, continuing on into the southwestern U.S. I'm also going to talk about the tropics in the Atlantic, and we do have a new tropical depression and a couple of other areas that look like they're going to develop. And Texas will be in the crosshairs of one of those here in a couple of days. So things are very busy. And aside from that, those of you in the middle of the country are seeing extreme amounts of heat, and some all-time August record high temperatures certainly are possible here over the next few days. So things are definitely in overdrive here when it comes to the weather. My goal, I know it's going to sound like hype, I know it's going to sound like hysteria, but honestly, I'm here as a meteorologist to break things down for you and tell you what to expect so that you're prepared. And if forecasts end up being a little bit overdone or a little underdone, at least I've done what I can control, and that is to prepare you. So I will say that honestly, because I know there's going to be some folks that chime in later on and want to say that they doubt it, that I'm hyping things, whatever. I mean, honestly, if you're going to be one of those people, just go ahead and change the channel now. Nobody's got time for you. So anyway, let me share my screen with you, and we are going to talk about the effects of Hurricane Hilary as it moves up into California today. We do have extreme amounts of flooding showing up on the map. Very heavy amounts of rain coming down at very intense rates. And a reason for that is that we've got a huge trough here just off the west coast. And what that's doing is it's pulling moisture very quickly northward with Hurricane Hilary into the southwest. Because of that transport from the deep tropics and the mountainous terrain that we do have in California. I mean, you go from the coast to places that are over 10,000 feet to the desert, and with all of that mountain rise, we do have moisture that's forced to squeeze northward and produce some very heavy amounts of rain. So all of that moisture is very quickly moving northward. Even though our storm is weakening, we are still dealing with extreme amounts of rainfall. And I've been watching videos of mudslides here in the Baja of California, and it has been catastrophic to say the least. We are seeing that moisture spreading northward. Now, Hilary itself has basically moved just along the shoreline here. Winds are weakening because of that. Water temperatures are now cooler. However, you can see there's still just tons of moisture, gobs of moisture coming down here. Even on the east coast of the Gulf of California, extreme amounts of rain well to the east of the center. And that is going to continue to be a problem. We do have hurricane warnings for parts of the Baja, tropical storm warnings all the way up to just west of Los Angeles. Even though I don't think this for LA and San Diego proper is going to be a big wind maker, it is going to be a big rain maker. When you get into areas of the mountains, though, I do think winds could approach hurricane force today. So destructive wind. And on top of that, we do have quite a bit of rain coming down. And even this area of tropical storm force winds here in orange extends all the way eastward to the east coast of Mexico. You see how this tropical storm warning goes all the way around the Gulf of California into northwestern Mexico. Well, those winds are going to continue into Arizona, and the Colorado River Valley will have tropical storm force winds. So this is a big storm, even though it's weakened quite a bit from its peak at 145 miles per hour down to 85. And when some of you are watching this, it may already be down to 75, but nonetheless, a very intense, large storm. Here's a look at where we're looking at that best chance for 58 mile per hour winds. You can see that extends into inland parts of San Diego County. And it also maybe even into Imperial County here. We could see wind gusts over 58 miles per hour. The chance is not as high as obviously areas south near the coastline here, where we do have a 90% chance of winds over 58 miles per hour, and honestly, a pretty good chance of hurricane force winds as well along the central parts of the Baja California. But as we go and just look at the chance for tropical storm winds, you can see that even southwest Arizona, much of southern Cal, and even parts of Nevada have a chance of seeing sustained winds of 39 miles per hour or higher. That does happen from time to time in some of the winter storms that hit this area, but from tropical systems, this is pretty much unprecedented. So some of you are living through a generational storm here today into tonight, and there's really no way to sugarcoat that. I'm not going to dumb it down. That's what we're dealing with. Here is a look at the flood threat from Hurricane Hilary, and you can see a high 70% risk encompassing a good chunk of real estate here. A high risk of flash flooding is something that honestly, this is kind of a 1 in 100 or 1 in 500 year event. So I really hope we don't have it again next year, because then we'd be seeing two 1 in 500 year events. And statistically, I think that's an overload on the computers here. But either way you look at it here, much of Southern Cal is in at least a moderate risk, and a good chunk of the Inland Empire and the mountain ranges here. So interior portions of Kern County, San Bernardino, Riverside counties, and even eastern parts of San Diego, Orange, and Los Angeles counties are in this high risk of severe weather. That encompasses parts of Nevada as well. Death Valley could see catastrophic flooding today and tonight. Even Vegas, all the way up in the central parts of Nevada, have at least a moderate risk for flooding. And that moisture gets squeezed very quickly northward into eastern Oregon, southeastern Washington, central and southwestern Idaho, and western Montana all have at least a slight risk at seeing some flash flooding. So not just California getting hammered with the rain, but even places like Cedar City and Flagstaff, Arizona, and just north of Phoenix, like places like Prescott, are dealing with the threat for rain. I don't think we have a problem in the Pac Northwest or even the San Francisco Bay Area. That moisture is going to stay east of you. But nonetheless, this is going to be a devastating amount of rainfall. Here's a look at why. And as a meteorologist, I like to take a look at the big picture, not just one model. And you can see there's a large trough here that is spinning off of the Bay Area and Monterey Peninsula here. What that's doing is it's producing southerly flow aloft, and that is taking Hurricane Hilary's circulation and very quickly dragging it northward here. It's like a car that's racing 80 miles per hour, dragging something behind it, maybe to Wally World, I don't know. And it is very quickly pulling everything north. So a big transport of moisture here. And these are jet stream dynamics you typically see during the big tornado outbreaks of the plains in March and April, when you get to see 60, 70, 80 mile per hour winds up at 500 millibars very quickly out of the south-southeast. So all of the moisture in the Baja, all the moisture in the Gulf of California is very quickly getting drawn northward, and some extreme amounts of wind flow aloft. And then you see everything goes around this extremely strong ridge of high pressure. I call it a death ridge, the heat dome that's centered around Kansas City. So you see all that moisture very quickly, this atmospheric river getting drawn all the way up into Montana and even the north central United States. And this is going to be this afternoon and then continuing tonight. Now, the upper low is going to take Hilary's circulation and kind of absorb it here. This is this evening in California around 6, 7 o'clock. And you can see wind flow aloft is getting very fast over parts of Nevada here. You can see in excess of 75, almost 80 knots, which is about 90 miles per hour up at, say, 20 to 30,000 feet aloft. So all of this moisture is not only just getting pulled north, but it's screaming northward and even northwestward. So we're seeing a rare event where it looks like a hurricane in the upper levels, and that is drawing that moisture up in, feeder bands, honestly, bands of very heavy rain and severe wind and even severe weather. And that's going to be an issue here in the Vegas area as we get through this evening. We could be dealing with tornadoes in Vegas, believe it or not. So yeah, folks, we are living through a once in a lifetime storm here. There's no way to dumb that down. There's no pulling punches here. The trough is going to lift out here tomorrow, and the moisture transport continues over Arizona and Utah, but things do quiet down in Southern Cal tomorrow. Most of the storm is going to be later today and into tonight before things very quickly come to a gradual ending here tomorrow. Quickly, gradual. All right. I'm sorry. I gotta get more sleep. But anyway, here's the simulated satellite. You can see the circulation associated with Hilary is moving into Southern Cal. Tough to kind of define it, but here it is right here. This is going to be about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So getting ready to cross the border into the San Diego area, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And then you can see that circulation still continues into Southern Cal and moving into Nevada here late this evening into the overnight. This is about midnight Pacific time. And the circulation has gone from this morning being in the Baja to later tonight being in Nevada, just to the east of Reno and Carson City. And so things are going to quickly come to an end. But all the business here is in the front, not a whole lot in the back. But we continue to have this transport tomorrow behind the, basically this is just trough induced, where we've got heavy rain and moisture moving across the deserts and even into the higher elevations here of central Arizona. So I'm going to say it's beneficial rain, but it's going to be a little bit too much too quickly here. And that's going to continue to get transported tomorrow night into Utah and Wyoming. So just a very major storm for the Southwest. Wind is going to be a big deal for some of you. Not so much in LA and at the coast, but if you get up into the canyons, like Topanga Canyon, we could have 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Getting to the east of San Diego, we actually have the potential to see wind gusts maybe in excess of hurricane force, as much as 80 miles per hour in some of these highest elevations here. Fortunately, not going to be a wildfire spreader with all the rain that we have, but if there's any lightning here, that's something I am going to be a little bit concerned with. But definitely some strong winds coming up through the passes, through the canyons here. Later in the day today, we've got the potential for wind gusts of 86 miles per hour in portions of western, I believe this is San Bernardino County, or it's Riverside. And I apologize, I'm not as familiar with Inland Empire here, but even when you get to places like Joshua Tree and Palm Springs, we do see that potential east of Palm Springs for 50-mile-per-hour winds later in the day today. Death Valley, winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour. So it's going to knock the heat down, but it is going to kick up the wind quite a bit. And we see this extreme amount of wind continuing. So inland areas in particular are going to be dealing with the strongest winds. Now, rain is a big deal as well. You can see some very extreme amounts here over the next 60 hours. With the high end potential being about 20 inches of rain, 19, 20 inches of rain. And some of you in California don't even see that kind of rain even in an entire year, and you're going to get it in a day. So a very, very dangerous situation. We also have the threat for some tornadoes here, probably not strong ones, but we start to see thunderstorms with torrential rain, gusty winds, and there is some potential to see some tornadoes here in parts of Imperial County, Eastern Riverside, San Bernardino County, and in sneaking up into parts of southern Clark County here in Nevada. So the best chance for tornadoes is going to be late this morning into the afternoon hours here in far southeastern California, and then spreading northward into even the Death Valley area could see a tornado. Sounds kind of extreme. But Nevada later this afternoon into this evening, and then tomorrow things are going to be a lot quieter across this region when it comes to severe weather. Arizona. You too can see tornadoes here. Whoops, let me get back to 6Z and show you all that. You too can see tornadoes here in Arizona. The best chance is going to be right along the Colorado River and then carrying up towards the Havasu area here late in the afternoon. So about 4 or 5 o'clock. And then even the Vegas area about 4 or 5 o'clock could see a couple of tornadoes. So be alert for that. I know it's something we don't really talk about in this part of the world, but it is certainly going to be a possibility here. Bullhead City seems to be in the bullseye. Here's our total rain amounts, and I'm going to zoom in and show you. This is the HUR model. It's an hourly rapid refresh model, high resolution. And you can see places like Lancaster, Victorville in that 3 to 6 inch zone, Ridgecrest about 6 inches, Vegas an inch, San Diego inch and a half. This is very concerning. 5 inches of rain in LA proper, according to this model. And then if you go up the beaches towards Santa Barbara and up to Oxnard, those amounts cut down quite a bit. But LA County, if you see 5 inches of rain in the next 12 hours, you are looking at incredible amounts of damage, especially up against the cliffs here. So I really hope that this ends up being overdone, but I would not be completely shocked. Anytime you got tropical moisture coming through, you've got that threat. When you get up through the Grapevine here, we do see 4 to 6 inch amounts. When you get farther into northeastern LA County, some of these spots could pick up a foot of rain here in just a day. And then getting over into areas like Interstate 15, we could see 6 to 8 inches of rain. And then the highest peaks here do have that potential for 16 to 18 inches of rain. And if there's anything I've learned from the HUR model, it's that, believe it or not, it can still under forecast some of these tropical rains if they're efficient enough. So I would say 20 inches is about the maximum that we could see somewhere in here. And that is going to lead to widespread property damage. It's going to put towns that are just down from the mountains where streams and rivers are going underwater here very quickly tonight and tomorrow. Water is going to rise very quickly. So sandbags definitely would be a good idea if you're in a flood-prone area. Mudslides, I think, are going to be a likely situation as well on both sides here of the ridge tops. So no way to really make that sound any prettier than I can. It's going to be a bad situation. Parts of Arizona could see significant rain. East of Prescott over to Grand Canyon, we could see 2-3 inches of rain somewhere in here, maybe an inch in Vegas, an inch in Flagstaff. Locally, higher amounts are possible. Even Phoenix, we could see some tropical downpours. Doesn't sound like much, but half an inch of rain in Phoenix in an hour could cause some flooding, so be prepared for that as well. And then as we spread farther northward into Nevada, while Vegas only gets about an inch, I say only, that's still significant. we do have higher elevations along the border here, getting into the southern Sierra Nevada that could see over 6 inches of rain, maybe as much as 8, and even significant flooding possible into central Nevada, where we look at 3 to 6 inch totals. And parts of Utah could see over an inch of rain with higher amounts across the mountains as well. Pretty extreme amounts of rain. Northern Cal, we're going to be okay around the Bay Area, I believe, and around Silicon Valley and even Napa Valley, but the mountains could see some of that moisture stream northward pretty quickly, and amounts could get over 2 inches, maybe even as much as 4 inches locally here east of Yuba City and west of Reno. So keep an eye on that. And then parts of eastern Oregon are going to get a lot of rain because I showed you that jet stream screaming that moisture northward. When we get up here between Ontario and Baker City, there's going to be spots that get 2 or 3 inches of rain, maybe even as much as 4 inches of rain in northeastern parts of Oregon, as well as western parts of Idaho here. Whoops, sorry about that. As local amounts of 2 to 4 inches here along the border, the Snake River area here as well, and a couple of inches in parts of Montana. So a very big storm with lots of moisture coming its way. Now let's take a look at the Atlantic Basin. And we do have tropical depression number 6. When I show it to you, you're going to be like, oh, that's not a big deal. A couple of areas of greater concern, though. One mainly is going to be the Caribbean, where we have a 70% chance of development and potential problems coming for the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Puerto Rico here in a few days. Lots of rain as well for the Windward Islands. This, I do think, does have a chance of becoming one of the next 2 tropical storms. The other area could be a depression or a tropical storm, and that is east of 6. Now, what we will have is something to keep a very close eye on towards Louisiana and Texas, and especially Texas. We do have an upper low that's moving through the Florida Keys. As it moves quickly across the Central Gulf tomorrow into Tuesday, it could very quickly spin up into a depression or tropical storm. And then we've got another wave that's emerging off the African coast that has a 40% chance of becoming another tropical storm. Probably not, though, until later this upcoming week. So not just one, but potentially 5 storms in the next 5 to 7 days here in the Atlantic Basin. So yeah, things are getting busy. Here's our trough of low pressure near Key West. You can see a flare-up of storms just off the Florida coast, some heavy storms as well over southern Miami-Dade County. This is going to move westward, and as it does so, we're looking at lowering surface pressure somewhere here right over the warm loop current of the Central Gulf. And as it moves towards Texas, probably not going to be a big storm, but will be potentially a quick moving depression or low end tropical storm. And that landfall is likely to be later on Tuesday. So that's what we're going to watch there. We do see active weather across Central America, but here's the area of bigger concern. That's the Eastern Caribbean. And right now, not a very well-defined low-pressure center, but that is certainly something that's possible here. Models are indicating that there'll be a low enough amount of wind shear for this to become a depression or even a tropical storm somewhere here in the Northeast Caribbean when we get into about Tuesday timeframe. And then behind that, here's our tropical depression. It looks like the weakest of the 3, but it does have a circulation center still, although it may not make it past the end of the day today. And then here's what could be our next tropical storm, not a threat to land over the central Atlantic. And then looking east of that area here, here's the African coastline. Here's our next wave that looks like it may follow the suit of this system and become a named storm. And models show that there's more coming behind that. So while we have 5 on the map now, we may have a 6th and a 7th. You guys kind of get the picture with that. Here's a look at the European ensemble. Potential for tropical depression here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's going to die here. As we get on beyond that, you can see here's number 6 right here. Could be number 7 over Central America. And we don't really even get to catch our breath much before more potential here. But the good news is that right now, as it appears, the northern Gulf Coast and the East Coast do not look like they're going to be in the crosshairs at this time. That could still change, though, but right now do not look to be in the crosshairs. Spaghetti models show here's the first system heading into Texas. Here's the next one heading up into the northwestern Atlantic, and maybe we're watching it in Canada or eastern New England. So you'll see it's going to recurve up through Hispaniola here. Here's the next one. It's dying. That's Tropical Depression 6. The one behind it's turning north over the central Atlantic, and the 2 behind it are following suit. So we've got a very busy lane of traffic here in the tropics from Africa into the central Atlantic. We've got our system in the Caribbean that still has some solutions, maybe threatening the northeast coast, more likely, though, towards Atlantic Canada. We have a quick storm here moving towards South Texas. And then we've got to keep an eye on a gyre here on the Pacific side, which could cross over and move into the Northwest Caribbean or the Southern Gulf of Mexico. And it's a lot of spaghetti for the time being, but we certainly have to keep an eye on things. Models are not going to do a great job with any of these. You can see GFS does develop this system in the Eastern Caribbean, and then you'll see it also develops a system in the Western Gulf. So this is Monday night, early Tuesday morning. Tropical storm here, maybe a depression or storm here. And then as those move away, we've got something else that could form here and move into the Atlantic side here coming in from Central America. You can see the GFS says this is going to develop very quickly in here. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case, but it's something to watch. And then our next storm's also pretty intense, but that's way out in the Central Atlantic. So this is not a bad look for the United States at this point, but we obviously have to keep an eye on things. You see the GFS tries to spin up something here early in September and bring it towards Louisiana, but again, that's still way too far out to make any kind of hero calls on. Here's a European model, and you'll see it's actually farther west of the GFS. It's hitting Haiti here on Wednesday, and then carrying off to the north and east and staying weaker, but maybe threatening Bermuda in a week. So we're going to keep an eye on that, but nothing behind it at this point. And the Canadian model, I call it the CMC, which stands for constantly making cyclones. You can see it's got one coming towards Texas here on Tuesday around afternoon. The next one that's going to be coming up through the border basically of Haiti and Dominican Republic here on Wednesday, and takes that just to the west of Bermuda. And it is staying off the East Coast, but it is worth watching. Here's the one behind it. And then here's the area that's cycling through the gyre into the Bay of Campeche and maybe into the Southern Gulf here at the end of the month. So it is trying to spin something else up here east of the Bahamas. So while the Gulf's not going to have major impacts the next few days, we certainly still want to keep an eye on things in the next couple of weeks. And farther out in the Atlantic, here's the Canadian model. And you can see storm, dying depression, storm, storm. All of these turning northward, not threatening the U.S. Next storm, this is next weekend. And keep an eye on what's going on in here. As this high builds westward, we do have a weakness and a little bit of a lane for things to turn northward. But if these storms miss that weakness, then we may have bigger problems down the road. All right, here's Tropical Depression number 6, and it's probably going to die by tonight. And whoops, sorry about that. You can see why. There's actually a low-level center right in here where my cursor is. Let me actually draw that on the screen for you guys. Here's the center right here. And here's the wind shear from the system in the Eastern Caribbean going right up on top of it. So we're not really seeing any sustained thunderstorm activity over the low-level center. Everything is well east. So while this is a depression, it is probably a dying depression, and I doubt it's going to get the name Emily. We just can't win with some of these storms in the Central Atlantic. Too much wind shear, and that's okay, honestly. We don't need to see another storm. However, the next one behind it, 98L, is something that maybe does have a better chance of developing. It already looks healthier. It just doesn't quite have that low-level circulation yet. This is more of a mid and upper-level circulation, but this could be our next tropical storm. Good news is that it's not going to be a threat to land, recurving well to the east of Bermuda even, but it definitely has a chance of becoming a hurricane. Now, this system over here in the Eastern Caribbean, a lot of moisture with it. We're getting crushed with heavy rain in Barbados, as well as Dominica, Martinique, St. Vincent, St. Lucia. All of these islands getting a lot of rain today, but we still don't have a well-defined center of circulation just yet. Now, the models say that will potentially be the case here in about a day or so south of Puerto Rico. And then we are going to see the trough that's off of the Bahamas and Cuba begin to stream this northward into a weakness between high pressure over the U.S. and high pressure over the subtropical Atlantic. So where the turn happens, most models say it's going to be over Dominican Republic, but we do have the European and the UK Met, which show that over Haiti. If you're in Haiti, you want to see these, not this. But obviously, this is going to be turning right. And then the models say it's going to try to come back a little bit more to the north and west. So in Bermuda, we've got to watch this curve back, as it could be a potential issue for us. Intensity forecasts say tropical storm most likely until it gets well north of Hispaniola. Then a few models say it's going to be a hurricane. This one is either going to be Emily or Franklin, depending on when it develops. And there are a few solutions that say it's going to try to turn back towards the East Coast, but overall, I would not forecast that yet. I would say more of a problem for Bermuda and Nova Scotia and maybe Newfoundland after that. And here's a look at the icon over the Gulf. Here's our upper level, mid-level feature tonight, and you can see the icon says it's going to develop as it's making landfall near or south of Corpus Christi here on Tuesday morning. So this system may be actually strengthening after it moves inland, and then it'll eventually weaken. But the upper level feature is going to be a last ditch effort here. I think it's at least a depression. I would not be shocked if it became a tropical storm over land or just off the coast, but it is going to be a short-lived storm after that. Wind gusts with this system, according to the NAM, which is going stronger than the other models, shows the potential for 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts off the Gulf Coast of Texas on Tuesday. Maybe wind gusts over 50 miles per hour around the Corpus Christi area and down a little bit more towards, I think it's Port Isabel. And then those winds should start to weaken. San Antonio could see some gusty winds. Port Lavaca could see gusty winds, maybe Galveston, but this is not really going to be a big wind maker at this point, more of a rain maker, and potentially 2 to 4 inches of rain around the Corpus Christi area and on southward, maybe locally 5 or 6. Maybe an inch of rain south of Houston as well. But when you get north of I-10, this looks to be less of a rainmaker than anything else. Looking at the rest of the U.S., this is Hurricane Hilary. This is the trough, and this is the upper low drawing everything northward. Death ridge of high pressure in place from central Texas on up into the lower Great Lakes and eastward towards Georgia. That's going to suppress any kind of storm development here. And you can see the temperature forecasts today are very extreme. 110 in Dallas, 112 in Wichita Falls, 108 in Wichita, 102 in Kansas City, 105 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 105 in Houston. Tomorrow, more of the same. It's going to be a bit cooler down around New Orleans and on the Texas coast due to the tropical moisture, but still very hot, 109 in parts of central Texas. And that heat expands into the mid-Atlantic states, mid to upper 90s in places like Richmond, Raleigh, Columbia, Charlotte, and inland towards Augusta as well. As we get to Tuesday, more of the same. We start to see triple-digit heat expanding into Wisconsin and Minnesota. As we get to the day on Wednesday, upper 90s around Chicago, western suburbs may take a run at 100 degrees. As we get to Thursday, the heat rebuilds here in Houston, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge. I would not be shocked to see 110 somewhere in Louisiana and Southwest Mississippi. So we are going to be challenging all-time record heat here. 103 in St. Louis, again, 97 in Chicago, but some models are showing 100, even all the way to the lakeshore. 98 in Cincinnati and Indianapolis and Lexington, Kentucky. 95 in Morristown and Knoxville, Tennessee on Thursday. And Friday, 100 in Nashville, 100 in Albany, Georgia, 102 in Montgomery, 106 in Jackson, 108 in Dallas. So a broken record at this point, record after record after record. And this is a look at next Saturday. And you can see a cold front comes down and cools us off in the Midwest, thank the Lord. But it will still be very hot across portions of the deep south into next weekend. Thank you all so much for your time today. Please be safe. My prayers are with everybody in California. This video is honestly, I just have to break everything down and help you guys be as prepared as possible for the absolute worst. I obviously pray that that's not the case. I'm a Christian man and I'm a praying person. And I give all the glory to God who allows me to do this every day. You know, there are just things we can't control, but we can't try to do everything ourselves. We've got to lean on God. And Matthew 6:33 says, "But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." We're all going through storms in our life. We're all going through challenges. We cannot do it alone. We were not put here randomly. We were created by God. And seeking God and the kingdom of God and eternal life through Jesus Christ, and those things shall be added unto you. And I want to encourage you, because this video has been pretty dark, talking about some extreme weather, but there is light at the end of this tunnel, and that is through God, through his son, Jesus Christ, who has died on the cross for us to live eternally. I would love to pray for you. I'm praying for the safety of many here, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday. God bless you.